All right, so for this last example, what we need to do in order to find the slope and the y-intercept is we have to actually get this y by itself. So the only way we can do that is by dividing by 2 on both sides. So if we simplify, the y is now going to be equal to 6 divided by 2 gives us 3x, and positive 4 divided by 2 gives us positive 2. So we're now able to identify our slope and our y-intercept. From the new and improved equation, our slope is positive 3, and our y-intercept is 0, 2. All right, so let's move on. Take a second, finish those up if you need to. Press pause on the YouTube video. But we're going to transition to graphing our equations from slope-intercept form. So basically, the way I kind of think about this is where you wake up in the morning is home, and our home in this case is always our first point. In this case, our home is our y-intercept. So your home is your y-intercept, which means that if we're going to graph anything, the first thing we should do is graph our y-intercept. So the y-intercept in this case happens to be our b value, which is the point 0, -1. So I'm going to start out by graphing that point 0, -1 right here. So always start out by graphing your y-intercept first. So that's 0, -1. And then we use the slope, which in this case is 2. I'm going to write that as a fraction, not 3, but 2. So write that as a fraction, 2 over 1. And it's important to think of it as a fraction because remember, that fraction represents rise over run. So from home, from where you woke up, from the y-intercept, we are going to rise 2 steps. So if I rise 2 steps, watch the mouse here. I go from -1, up 1, 2. I've risen 2, and I'm going to run 1. That's my next point that I can plot. So up 2 and over 1, I can do it again as many times as I want. So up 2 over 1, plot that next point. Can do it as many times as I want. Up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. Or if you want to go in reverse, you can go down 2 and left 1. Down 2 and left 1. All of these create the equation of our line, which in this case ends up being these purple dots right here. If we connect them here, there's the equation of that line graphed. So that's kind of how this approach is. I'm going to let you try the next two on your own. You have plenty of space to get those. Here you have 1 over x. So don't forget that's 1/2 is your slope. And then your first point that you should be graphing on that is 0, what? 0, 5 is your y-intercept. So I'll get you going at least with that. So that right there would be your home. That's the first point you want to plot before you use your slope to graph some more points and then draw in your line. All right, so work on those with your partner. Make sure that you are following along and know what you're doing. You have another one there to try out. I'm going to keep it rolling. So next, you're going to want to create equations. So this is really quick because we're giving you the slope and we're giving you the y-intercept. So it's pretty quick and pretty easy. So for this one, we're writing them in slope-intercept form. So simply have to plug in our slope. That's 1/2 times x. And then our y-intercept is 2. So that's going to be plus 2. Pretty straightforward, nothing fancy. You just have to know where to put each piece of the puzzle. So you want to put your slope in the M position and your y-intercept in the B position. Now, the ones that are going to be a bit more tricky are these right here. What happens when your slope is 0? So I just want to show you kind of practically what that looks like. If your slope is 0, even if we plug that in, we're going to have 0x. My y-intercept is 9, so that's plus 9. But really, 0 times x is just 0. So my equation here is actually y equals 9. So that's actually kind of goes us back to, if we have a 0 slope, this is a horizontal line. So remind yourself that that line right there is horizontal. Okay, so press pause, take a few minutes to finish up the rest of those, and make sure you have a good understanding of how to create an equation of a line given the slope and given the y-intercept. All right, now let's move on to writing the equation that passes through a point and has a slope of a particular number. So we have the point that we're given. Our point is 2 comma 3, and we're given our slope. So what I want you to remember is that we're still writing our equation in y equals mx plus b form. So what we know here is we know a couple of these things. We know our slope. So this right here, we know our slope. That's 5. But we don't actually know the y-intercept in this case. What we do know is we know that x is equal to 2 and that y is equal to 3. So what we can do is instead of plugging in for m and b, we can plug in for m and x and y. So I like to kind of leave these blanks here, and we're going to solve for b instead. So we know our slope is 5, and we actually know our y is 3, and our x is 2. So now it just takes a couple steps of simplification to solve for b. So if you subtract over 10, b equals -7. So you're not done because you still have to write the actual equation. The actual equation is y equals 5x minus 7. All right, so the next one is going to be on the same train of thought, but we still have to find the slope first. So before we can actually complete this same process that we did right here, we actually have to find the slope between those 2 points. So that's our first thing. So press pause, try that out. And now that you're back, make sure you got the same answers as I did. So -8 minus 1 all over 5 minus 2. Okay, so that leaves our slope as -9 over 3, which is -3. There's our slope. Okay, now we can choose either of those points, whether you want to, I'm going to choose 2 comma 1 just because those numbers seem easier to me. So blank equals blank times blank plus b. And let's plug in. We know our slope is -3, and we know the point we're plugging in is 2 and 1. So 1 equals -3 times 2 plus b. So 1 equals -6 plus b, which means b equals 7. So what's my actual equation? The actual equation is y equals my slope, -3 times x plus 7. So lots of different ways to get our equation, whether we're given the slope and a point or whether we're given 2 points. We can find the slope first and then plug one of those points back in. That allows us to find the y-intercept, bring it all back together, present your final answer as y equals mx plus b. All right, hopefully that's making sense. So what we're going to do is you guys are going to have an activity. So listen close to this activity. You're basically going to create your ordered pair. So if I was in the room, I would create an ordered pair, and I'm just going to write it down on my notes. So my ordered pair is 4 comma 2. Okay. Now everyone in the room has created an ordered pair. So what you're going to do, I'll go to the next screen so you can see the directions, is the first thing you're going to do is you're going to find the slope between you and a partner. So let's just say my point was 4 comma 2. Let's say that I paired up with Donovan. Okay, so Donovan, you're my partner, and let's say that Donovan's point was 0 comma -3. So now our goal is to find first the slope that goes through those 2 points, and then use that point. All right, use your points to find the slope and plug in everything you need to get y equals mx plus b. All right. So our goal, Donovan and my goal, would be to find that equation that goes through 4 comma 2 and 0 comma -3, just like we practiced. Your final answer presented as y equals mx plus b. Okay, so I want you to try that out with a couple different partners. Do it at least 2 or 3 times, and then once you've done it about 2 or 3 times, go ahead and jump into our practice assignment. Best of luck to you guys. Good luck. Make it happen.